The midday sun burned across the savanna, baking the tall grass into a sea of gold. A small band of Australopithecus afarensis moved low, cautious, every sense alert. Their lean bodies, covered in dark hair, swayed between two worlds, part ape, part human, yet wholly bound to survival. The air trembled with heat. Insects swarmed around the scent of drying mud, where a river had recently receded, leaving pools rich with trapped fish. The group pressed forward. 7 adults, 3 children clinging to their mothers, and 1 elder moving slower at the rear. At the heart of the band, a heavily pregnant female staggered with effort. She carried a bundle of gathered roots and berries in a woven nest of leaves, her hands rough from years of clawing at bark and digging with sharp stones. She paused often, pressing one hand to her swollen belly. Something inside her shifted, an urgent reminder that her time was near. The hunters, 2 males with sharp stones gripped in their hands, scanned the land. Their eyes caught movement in the reeds ahead, the twisting bodies of trapped catfish. One male let out a guttural call, a deep hoo, and the others understood. Food. The tribe moved quickly, breaking into a trot. Children clung tighter. Stones cracked against fish skulls. Blood stained the muddy water. The group worked in rhythm, scooping slippery bodies into leaf pouches. This was survival, fast, instinctive, precious. But then, a sound split the air. A low growl, rolling deep from the grass. Every head snapped upward. The elder froze, his nostrils flaring. Children whimpered silently into their mothers' chests. A ripple of fear passed through the band as eyes locked on the swaying grass just beyond the waterline. The pregnant female felt a sharp pain lance through her abdomen. Her knees buckled, her hands clawing at the earth. She fell onto her side, biting back silent cries as the contractions surged like fire through her body. The others turned, hesitating, torn. Food lay half-gathered, the predator unseen but close. Now, their most vulnerable member was collapsing. Survival demanded a choice. One of the males, the strongest, stepped forward, raising a jagged stone high. He hissed through clenched teeth, puffing his chest, trying to make his small frame larger, louder. Another female crouched beside the laboring mother, pressing her palm against her back, her eyes darting between her and the grass. The growl deepened. A pair of golden eyes glinted through the shadows. A lioness. The predator crouched low, her muscles quivering with coiled strength. The smell of blood from fish and the weakness of the herd had pulled her in. The band scattered into formation. 2 males brandished stones, circling wide. Mothers pressed children into the tall grass, forcing them to crouch. The elder lifted a branch, waving it in wide arcs. And in the middle of it all, the pregnant female writhed, her belly tightening again and again, her hands clawing deep furrows into the dirt. The lioness advanced, her body a whisper of death across the ground. The mother beside the pregnant one looked at her, then at the beast. Her eyes flickered with primal decision. She seized a handful of red clay and smeared it across her face, a mask of defiance. Then she leapt to her feet, screeching, pounding her fists on her chest. The lioness paused, just a heartbeat. The hunters hurled their stones. One struck the predator's shoulder, another grazed her flank. The lioness snarled, swiping the air, then retreated a step. But her hunger was not broken. She crouched again, muscles rippling, tail lashing. And at that same moment, the pregnant female screamed silently, her body convulsing. Blood. New life forcing its way into the world, right in the heart of the chaos. The lioness lunged. The screen cuts to black. The world erupted in motion. The lioness leapt, her claws flashing like curved knives, her body a blur of muscle and fury. Dust and grass exploded beneath her paws. The hunters roared, a primal thunder that ripped from their throats, hurling more stones as they rushed to meet her charge. One stone struck her skull with a sharp crack. She faltered, her leap skewed, landing just short of the mother in labor. Her jaws snapped at empty air, teeth closing where flesh should have been. The ground shook as she skidded, claws raking dirt. The males didn't hesitate. They rushed, screaming, pounding the earth with fists and feet, brandishing jagged rocks in their raised hands. One male slashed downward, cutting across her shoulder. Blood sprayed, hot and metallic in the air. The lioness snarled and whipped her paw across his chest, sending him tumbling into the mud. The mothers pressed the children deeper into the grass, muffling tiny whimpers with shaking hands. Their wide eyes shone with animal terror, yet not a sound escaped. Silence was survival. The pregnant female writhed in the dirt, sweat and blood mingling across her body. Her child was coming, unstoppable, her cries silenced only by clenched teeth. Beside her, the loyal female crouched, frantic. She smeared mud across the laboring mother's legs, trying to ease the blood, trying to coax life out faster. Time was an enemy, every heartbeat stolen by the predator's claws. The lioness pivoted back toward them, tail lashing like a whip. She fixed her golden gaze on the newborn's scent, on the weakness bleeding into the air. Hunger drove her forward again. Then, the elder moved. Though bent with age, his body suddenly straightened with desperate fire. He seized a branch smoldering with sunlight, bark peeled to sharp splinters. With a guttural cry, he charged, swinging the branch like a spear. The wood cracked against the lioness's muzzle. She reeled back, momentarily stunned. The others seized the opening, flanking her, shrieking louder, pelting her with every stone within reach. Their voices thundered across the savannah, echoing like the rage of giants. The lioness hissed, torn between fury and calculation. She slashed the air once more, her growl rumbling like thunder. Then, muscles twitching, she yielded, melting back into the tall grass. Her golden eyes lingered for one last heartbeat, a promise of return, before she vanished. Silence fell. Only the rasping breaths of the tribe filled the air. The males collapsed to their knees, their chests heaving. Blood oozed from gashes. The elder leaned heavily on his branch, trembling but unbroken. Mothers released their children, clutching them close, sobbing into their hair. And in the center of it all, the laboring female cried out, a sound raw, ancient, and unstoppable. With one final spasm of pain, her child slid into the world. A slick, fragile body coated in blood and membrane. Tiny limbs flailed, gasping for first breath. The helper mother scooped the infant up, clearing its nose with trembling fingers. She held it aloft to the sun, and the child wailed, a sharp, piercing cry that cut through the air like fire. The band froze, staring. Relief trembled across their faces, mingling with exhaustion and awe. Life had come even as death circled them. But the newborn's cry carried far across the grasslands. A sound not just of life, but of signal, an invitation to every predator within earshot. The mother clutched her child to her chest, rocking, trembling. She looked at the band with wide, pleading eyes. The males rose, bloodied but determined. One pointed toward the distant line of trees, a shadow of safety. The others nodded. The tribe gathered quickly, food forgotten, survival their only thought. The mothers lifted children onto their backs. The elders steadied the wounded. And at the center, the new mother limped forward, her newborn clutched close, her face streaked with mud and tears. Behind them, the grass stirred again, not lion but jackals. Shadows slinking, eyes glinting. The scent of blood had summoned them. The band moved faster, weaving through the grass toward the tree-line. Every step was agony for the mother, yet she pressed forward, driven by something stronger than pain. The infant wailed again. Jackals yipped in reply. The chase had only just begun. The savanna sky darkened without warning. What began as distant rumbles soon boiled into rolling clouds, black and swollen, dragging shadows across the land. The tribe pressed forward, weaving toward the tree-line as the newborn's cries pierced the heavy air. Behind them, the jackals yipped and circled, emboldened by the smell of blood. The first drops fell, fat, warm, spattering across faces and fur. Then came the deluge. Rain hammered the earth, flattening grass, turning dust into sucking mud. Thunder split the sky, each boom shaking marrow and bone. The band quickened their pace. Mothers bent low, shielding infants beneath their bodies. The elder limped faster, eyes darting skyward in fear. Storms were more than water. Storms meant death, lightning, flood, and predators that stalked in the confusion. The pregnant mother, now the mother of a trembling newborn, staggered. Blood still ran down her thighs, mixing with rain, her body weak and hollowed by labor. Yet she clutched her infant with a grip born of desperation, shielding its tiny face from the sheets of water. The jackals closed in, but the storm unsettled them. Their shapes flickered in and out of the grass, reluctant to charge against the tribe's frantic cries and stone-wielding males. Then lightning struck. The bolt split a tree ahead, exploding bark into fire and steam. The band froze as flames leapt into the downpour, hissing and spitting. For a moment, fear paralyzed them, yet the fire also held power. The elder, eyes wide, stumbled toward the burning branch. With shaking hands, he seized it, lifting the first flame the tribe had ever touched. His face glowed in the stormlight, both terrified and entranced. The jackals saw it too, their ears flattening, their bodies retreating. Fire was a predator greater than all others. But nature's fury was not done. The downpour grew heavier, cascading into rivulets that merged, churning into streams that tore across the savanna. The ground beneath their feet softened into a rushing current, sucking at ankles and dragging loose stones. The nearby river, swollen by the storm, burst its banks with a roar. Water surged like a beast unleashed. The tribe shrieked, scattering to higher ground. Mothers lifted children overhead. Hunters grabbed whatever hands they could. The elder, flame in hand, stumbled, nearly losing his prize to the current. The new mother fell, clutching her infant to her chest, her body tumbling into the swirling torrent. The helper mother lunged, seizing her arm, pulling with all her strength. For one heartbeat, they were united, the child suspended between them. Then the current wrenched them apart, hurling the new mother downstream. The band cried out, their voices lost in the storm. The current carried her violently, smashing her against rocks, dragging her through reeds. She held the infant above the water with both arms, her own body battered, lungs burning. Lightning illuminated her face, raw defiance, primal fear, the refusal to let go. At last, the current spat her out onto a muddy bank, coughing, gasping, the infant still alive in her arms. She curled around the tiny body, sobbing soundlessly as rain lashed down. But she was alone. The storm had scattered the tribe, swallowed them into distance. Their cries were gone, their silhouettes lost in the endless rain. She dragged herself upright, trembling, her legs heavy with exhaustion. The infant whimpered against her chest, hungry, fragile, alive. She rocked it gently, swaying in rhythm with the storm, her eyes scanning the drowned world. The fire, the band, the elder's wisdom, gone from sight. Only the newborn tethered her to survival. And then a shadow moved. Through the rain, figures emerged. Not jackals. Not lions. Not her tribe. Another band of Australopithecus. Their eyes glinted from beneath dripping brows, their hands heavy with stone tools, their posture wary and sharp. Strangers. Rivals. The mother froze, clutching her child tighter, her body curling into a shield. The newborn whimpered. The strangers advanced, circling, their sense foreign, their intentions unreadable. She was not safe. She had fallen from one trial into another. The storm had birthed not just flood, but confrontation. The storm eased into a heavy drizzle, but the air still throbbed with tension. The mother crouched on the muddy bank, her newborn pressed to her chest, her eyes fixed on the strangers that encircled her. There were 5 of them. Their frames were leaner, their jaws sharper, their smell strange. They carried stones shaped by water, smooth but deadly, and their eyes lingered not on her, but on the bundle she clutched, the fragile, crying life she guarded. Her chest rose and fell, heaving with exhaustion, but she forced her body into a shield. One hand clawed into the mud, the other cradled the child close. Her gaze met theirs, wide, wild, unblinking. The rival band spread wider, cautious. Their leader, a tall male with scarred brows, stepped forward. His nostrils flared as he inhaled the scent of blood and milk. He raised his stone, then lowered it slowly, as if testing her reaction. The mother hissed, a sound low and guttural, primal as the earth. The newborn whimpered in answer, its tiny arms twitching, its cry weak but piercing. The sound froze the strangers for a heartbeat. They knew what it meant, life fresh from the womb, fragile, slow, vulnerable. Easy prey. The scarred male tilted his head, calculating. His band shifted behind him, some edging closer, others glancing into the distance. They too had children somewhere, hidden or carried by their females. Hunger etched their movements, desperation lingered in their eyes. The mother pressed herself against the mud wall of the riverbank, every muscle trembling. She knew she could not fight them all. If they wanted her child, she would die here. Then a rustle broke the standoff. From the dripping foliage above the bank came the faintest shuffle. A rival female emerged, younger, her belly heavy with pregnancy. She limped, hand clutching her side, her eyes weary. She looked at the mother, then at the newborn, her expression softening. Something shifted. The younger female barked softly, a sound not of threat but recognition. She touched her own stomach, then gestured toward the mother's child. The scarred male snarled low in his throat, but the female pressed closer, her hand extended, palm upward, empty. The mother's breath came fast. She rocked the newborn, soothing it with rhythmic grunts, but her eyes locked onto the female's. There was no malice there, only the shared burden of creation, of bringing life into a world of teeth and hunger. The rain eased further, dripping from leaves in slow rhythm. The scarred male shifted again, his patience fraying. He wanted to move, to take, to dominate. But the younger female growled, soft but defiant. The sound froze him, his authority challenged not by force, but by need. Slowly, the female knelt before the mother. She reached down, scooping mud in her hand, smearing it across her chest and face in a gesture of solidarity. Then she placed the mud-smeared hand upon her belly, her gaze locked on the mother's eyes. The meaning was primal, older than words. I am you. We carry the same burden. The mother's rigid body loosened slightly. She tilted her head, rocking the infant in small circles, then lowered the child just enough for the female to see. The newborn's tiny hand flexed in the damp air. The rival female let out a low, mournful hum, a sound that vibrated with recognition. She did not reach further. She did not touch. She only hummed, her body swaying, her eyes soft. The scarred male barked, furious, but the sound was hollow. His band stirred uneasily, torn between hunger and kinship. The female's hum lingered, filling the silence, weaving a fragile thread of peace. For a heartbeat, enemies became kin. But peace was thin on the savannah. From beyond the dripping trees came a sound that froze every body in place. A roar deep and guttural, vibrating the very ground. Not lion, not jackal. Far heavier. The rival band stiffened, their stones raised once more. The mother clutched her child tighter, retreating against the mud wall. The forest fell silent. Then, out of the shadows, massive shapes emerged, striped bodies, long fangs flashing white. Saber-toothed cats. 2 of them, eyes locked on the gathered hominids, muscles twitching in hunger. The fragile truce shattered. Survival demanded unity, or slaughter. The mother's heart thundered in her chest. She knew the trial had only just begun. The saber-toothed cats stepped from the dripping foliage like shadows given flesh. Their striped pelts rippled in the storm-washed light, their massive fangs gleaming. Each padded step pressed silence across the ground. The rival band froze. The scarred male hissed through his teeth, brandishing his stone, but the cats did not flinch. Hunger had carried them here. Blood had called them. The mother clutched her newborn to her chest, curling her body around it. The rival female crouched beside her, belly heavy with life, eyes wide with terror. For one breath, predator and prey stared across the rain-soaked clearing. Then the world erupted. One cat lunged. The scarred male screamed, hurling his stone with all his strength. It cracked against the beast's jaw, but the momentum of the leap carried it forward. Claws slashed, blood sprayed, and the male fell with a ragged cry. His band shrieked, scattering in panic. The second cat circled wide, cutting off escape. Its golden eyes locked on the mother's crouched against the mud wall. The newborn whimpered. The sound drew the predator closer. The rival female seized a branch half buried in the mud, wielding it like a spear. Her hands trembled, but she stood tall, her body between the saber-tooth and the mother with child. The mother, exhausted but burning with primal fury, grabbed a jagged stone from the ground. Together they faced death. The cat growled, crouching low. Its muscles quivered. Then it sprang. The rival female thrust her branch upward. The wood splintered against the cat's chest, but it slowed the beast's descent for a heartbeat. Enough for the mother to strike. She slashed the stone across the predator's nose. Blood streaked its face. It roared, thrashing, claws tearing earth instead of flesh. The band surged with sudden courage. The surviving males and females hurled stones, shrieked, pounded the ground. The air filled with a storm of screams and rocks. The saber-tooth lashed its tail, furious. It backed away, snarling, one eye bleeding, then turned to its companion. The first cat had already dragged down the scarred male, but the band's stones battered it relentlessly. Both predators growled, uncertain. The prey had teeth of its own. The elder's flame, carried through storm and flood, appeared then. From the shadows of the trees, the old one stumbled forth, his branch still burning faintly despite the rain. His eyes were wild, his body trembling, but he raised the fire high. The cats froze. The hiss of flame, the smell of smoke, it was alien terrifying. With a roar that was more than human, the elder thrust the fire forward. Sparks spat into the cats' faces. Their snarls faltered, ears flattening. Stones struck them again. The tribe's cries rose louder, unified. And at last, the saber-tooths turned. One limped into the trees, bleeding and humiliated. The other released its grip on the scarred male's lifeless body and slunk after it. Silence swallowed the clearing once more. The band stood trembling, chests heaving, eyes wide. Blood streaked their skin, mud caked their limbs, but they lived. The mother collapsed to her knees, her newborn still in her arms. The rival female knelt beside her, exhaustion softening her face. For a moment, there were no tribes, no rivals, only mothers who had defied death together. The elder lowered his fire, his body shaking. Around him, the scattered band reformed. They gathered the wounded, mourned the fallen, pressed close for warmth. The newborn whimpered again. The mother lifted it high into the gray light, her arms shaking but unbroken. The infant's cry pierced the silence, not as weakness but as victory. The band answered with low, rumbling hums. The rival female added her voice, her hand resting on her swollen belly. For one fragile heartbeat, two tribes sang together. Life had endured. The storm passed, the air clearing, the savanna stretching wide once more. Predators lurked, hunger lingered, danger would return. But for now they had won. The mother pressed her child to her chest, closing her eyes. The infant's heartbeat thudded against hers, fragile yet fierce. A mother's burden had become the tribe's salvation. And the child, the cry that had nearly doomed them all, was now the sound of survival. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic adventures.